Welcome back to the Illinois Fighting Illini Dynasty. I'm your host, Jay Shoob, and today we have our first recruiting update of the 2022 season. The 2023 recruiting class is starting to take its shape and form, and we will dive right into that. We will also cover the Penn State game at the end of this episode and preview that as well. But first, I want to mention Illinois' season up to this point. We're only 5 games in, but it's certainly been a season of ups and downs, as we all know if you've been following along. That first game, the season opener on the road against Missouri, that was just a disaster. Illinois was blown out by Missouri. Everything that could have gone wrong seemed to go wrong. The defense looked pretty awful in that game. The offense wasn't great either. And it was just not a good look for Illinois at all, especially against a non-conference opponent that hasn't really done that well after that game. But after that game, Coach David Deal made a promise to the players and to the fans that he would make sure his coaching staff would not have his team unprepared for a game the rest of the season, and that the fans would see a better product moving forward. And that has certainly taken to be true so far. It wasn't quickly though, it didn't turn on a dime. The following game against NIU, an inferior opponent, Illinois certainly got the defense to play better, but the offense still struggled. And then the Maryland game, that I think was the turning point, because that Maryland game, this team was down 17-0 very early, but they battled back and they really shut down and were the better team the rest of the way, and they clawed out a 3-overtime thriller victory against Maryland at home, which I think really turned this team around, really turned the team's confidence around to say, hey, we can win these types of games. And then Illinois had a bye week, and since then, these last 2 games against Arkansas State and Rutgers, albeit not the most impressive teams to say, but Illinois certainly has gotten a lot better. The defense has played really well. The defensive line's been outstanding, and the offense has looked very good, very explosive, and very athletic these last 2 games. And they're seeming to start peaking at the right time, as we are really going to dive into conference play and get into some good teams here in Big Ten play the rest of the season. Taking a look here at the schedule, as you guys can see, this Penn State game, this will be a tough game coming up next week. But so far, the 2 best teams in the conference as of now are Nebraska and Wisconsin, and Illinois doesn't play those teams towards the end of the year. Both those teams are ranked, and they're both on the road, so those will be big tests for Illinois this season, and a really backloaded schedule in my opinion. Taking a look here at the Big Ten standings, it is very early. Most teams have only played 2 or 3 conference games, but Illinois so far is in pretty good shape. They are 2-0 in conference play, tied for Wisconsin for first place in the division. Of course, they haven't played anybody from the Western Division yet, so there's still a lot to unfold. But Wisconsin is the only remaining undefeated team left in this conference. They are 5-0. They had a huge victory over Michigan last week at home. Graham Mertz appears to be playing at a very high level. They have the Heisman frontrunner in Nakia Watson, so Wisconsin looks like the early favorite to win this conference. And then over to the East, it is very jumbled up, just like last year where Ohio State won this division after having 4 losses. Right now, Indiana and Michigan State are both 4-1 and leading the division, both 2-0 in conference play, while Ohio State is 0-2. It is unbelievable how much this division has really been turned over on its side the last 2 years. Taking a look at the top 25 polls here, we see the Oklahoma Sooners are number 1 in the country at 4-0. USC, Washington, Auburn, Tennessee, Notre Dame, UNC follow, and then we start getting into some 1-loss teams. Wisconsin, the highest ranked Big Ten team, is number 9. Nebraska in there at number 12. Michigan at 15 after their loss last week to Wisconsin. The defending national champion Florida Gators are at number 20 with 2 losses already. And that rounds out the top 25, and I figured Illinois might be getting some others receiving votes in this category here by being at 4-1, but it looks like that Missouri loss is really a big blemish on their resume and not a good look for the Illini thus far. But the Heisman frontrunners so far, Nakia Watson is the leader, Jamon McClendon, Keaton Slovis, the lone quarterback, and then DJ Williams and Eric Ray round out the Heisman frontrunners, which is very running back heavy. But with all that being said, let's get into some recruiting now. Recruiting, in my opinion, is one of the most important parts of this dynasty. This is the future building blocks of this dynasty right here. And a lot of these kids we will be seeing for years to come. The quarterback position we'll start with offense and then go to defense. And Illinois is looking to get their QB of the future after the wave of Isaiah Williams, Deuce Spann, and Samari Collier all leave. And right now, Kenton Peoples is Illinois' top target. He is a gem prospect. He's only a 3-star. He's got very good passing skills, great speed and elusiveness, and right now Illinois is his only offer. He's also considering some big name schools on there, but Illinois found him early, they offered him early, and they are trying to see if they can really convince Kenton Peoples to commit to Illinois, and hopefully those big schools don't bite. He could be a very big diamond in the rough find for Illinois out of Oklahoma. Isaiah Gaither, Illinois was pursuing him very hard at the very beginning of the season, but as you can see, he has started to really favor Minnesota. Minnesota and Illinois are his only 2 offers, and right now it looks like he is going to go to Minnesota, so Illinois has backed off a bit. Ross Battle, also a guy that Illinois found. They went very hard at him at the beginning out of Ohio. He's the number 11th ranked QB in this class, but the problem with Ross Battle is that he really wants to go to Marshall. He has offers from Illinois, Ball State, and Florida State, but he has not been offered by Marshall, but he is very much favored to go to Marshall, and looks like that's where he will end up, but they haven't even offered him yet. So if you're Marshall, what are you doing there? It's very interesting development here with Ross Battle, the number 11 QB in the country, that wants to go to Marshall, but they haven't even offered him yet. Next up is Dominic Doty. This is Illinois' second QB that they would like to land in this class if they cannot get Kenton Peoples. But Dominic Doty out of Georgia, he's the number 6 ranked quarterback in this class. Very strong arm. He's got great throwing power. He's a strong pocket passer, but he has a lot of interest in UNC and a lot of interest from other schools. You can see he already has 6 offers filling up on his list right there, some big name schools. Illinois looks like will be able to make his Final Four cut. He will be visiting them later in the season, but right now UNC is the favorite to land him. Avery Butler, a 3-star quarterback out of Texas. He is sort of considered Illinois' fallback option if they cannot land any of these other guys up top. He is very strong. He's got a very strong arm. You can see the throw power is very good there, but he needs to work on his accuracy, a lot of raw strength, but needs to work on his skills. He is considering some big name schools, but nobody has offered him yet, and he is just starting his recruiting process. Ray Bell, also like Avery Butler, is a fallback option. He has got very good accuracy, doesn't have the strongest arm, but for a high school kid, he's got very good accuracy. He's very balanced, and again, he's a guy that Illinois is starting to pursue a little bit, maybe as a fallback option if they cannot land Kenton Peoples or Dominic Doty. Next up, we move to wide receiver. And yes, 5-star wide receiver Kyle Gibson is considering Illinois, and Illinois is going very, very hard off of him. He is the number 4 wide receiver in this class out of Illinois, out of Arlington Heights, so he's an in-state kid. He's got very good speed, a 91 speed grade. Very good jumping skills, stamina as well. He's just a very athletic receiver, and you can see the elite route running too. He's got an 88 grade there at route running. So Illinois kind of sees him as like a Devontae Smith, a guy that's a very elite route runner that can get open. Not the greatest at ball catching skills, but they think that his elite ability to run routes, be very athletic, and get himself open will really fit well into this offense. And Illinois is making the cut so far, but they are in a dogfight to land him with Notre Dame or Wisconsin, who both are definitely more prestigious schools so far. But Illinois will hopefully make the cut, and they will be in the battle for him, and they would love to keep Kyle Gibson in state. But if they cannot land Kyle Gibson, Corey Mathis is also a good fallback option. Corey Mathis is more of a possession receiver. Illinois has not offered him yet. He is, of course, an in-state kid. He is considering Illinois, but they have not offered him yet, but they are keeping him on his radar. Wayne Moss, Illinois, was pursuing him initially. He's a very high-graded 4-star wide receiver out of Pennsylvania. Illinois so far is his only offer, but he's considering some big schools, and it looks like he really wants to go to Notre Dame, though none of those schools have offered him yet, but I'm sure once Notre Dame comes calling, he will end up going there. So Notre Dame is really snatching interest from some of these big-time receivers in this class. Some other fallback options that Illinois is considering: Tony Miller out of Ohio, also considered more of a possession receiver. And again, Illinois may pursue him as a backup option. They have not offered him yet, but we shall see how that plays out. Tony Holman, also out of Pennsylvania. He has decent speed, doesn't have the greatest catching grades, but he is also another backup option if they cannot land Kyle Gibson. He's got a list of some pretty middle-tier Power 5 schools. And then Joseph Gilmore. Joseph Gilmore, he was just added to the recruiting board, so Illinois is not on his list yet. He's got very good speed, kind of like Tony Holman. He doesn't have the greatest catching skills. Illinois looks to maybe project him as sort of a gadget player that they can use in the offense and develop him. But Illinois hopes to jump up his list pretty quickly here, and they have actually offered him. So between all the backup options of Corey Mathis, Tony Miller, Tony Holman, and Joseph Gilmore, Illinois seems to prefer Gilmore the most because Illinois has offered him, but he has not jumped onto their list yet because they just added him to the board. But moving over to tight ends, Illinois really needs a tight end in this recruiting cycle. They need to replace Luke Ford, who is a senior. He'll be moving on. Griffin Moore is also a senior, or will be a senior next year. And Zach Anderson is their top tight end target so far in this class. He's considered a receiving tight end. Right now, Illinois is his only offer. So he's got very good receiving skills. He's considering some bigger schools. He is from South Carolina, so he's considering a lot of those southeastern schools there. But Illinois is going in on him early. Also, Illinois can pitch to him that he may be seeing the field pretty early in his career with the way that the depth chart at that position is playing out. So Illinois is starting to garner some distance between them and other schools there. Rondell Hefner is also the other tight end that Illinois is going heavily after in this class. Like Zach Anderson, Hefner is also a receiving tight end. He's got very similar grades to Zach Anderson, but unlike Zach Anderson, he also is considering Indiana very heavily. So Illinois is basically in a one-on-one battle right now with Indiana to land him. But Illinois is pursuing him very hard, and they hope to be able to land at least one of Zach Anderson or Rondell Hefner. And those guys may not be redshirted their first year and may be able to see the field pretty early in their careers with the way that the tight end position depth chart's playing out. Moving over to offensive tackle, where Illinois just continues to look to build depth at this position. Joe Moore is one of their top targets at this tackle position. Joe Moore out of Missouri, he's got great pass and run block grades. Illinois is competing with a lot of schools to get him, however, and right now he is favored to go to Missouri, but Arkansas and Oklahoma State, as you can see, are also on his list. All four of those schools have offered him. He already visited Arkansas, and he'll be visiting the rest of those three schools later in the year. Illinois will be in a battle with some other schools to land him. And then Anthony Wilson, he was just added to the board, so Illinois is not on his list just quite yet. But Illinois really likes Anthony Wilson rather. He's got great blocking grades, outstanding blocking grades there, an 83, and 79 respectively in the three blocking columns there. Illinois will go after him very hard, and as I just said, he was just added to the board, so Illinois is not on his list of top schools, but you can see there nobody has offered him, nobody's really pursued him hard yet, so Illinois hopes they can go after him hard and early and land him. Next up to center, the only center that Illinois is targeting is Shane Gore, the home state kid out of Illinois, the number 38 ranked center in this class. Solid grades all around, and he really wants to play for Illinois, so Illinois hopes to be able to land Shane Gore here. In fact, I don't think they hope. They know they will be able to land Shane Gore. He's been offered by some other schools, Wisconsin, Iowa, and Northwestern, but he wants to stay home state. He grew up an Illini fan, and he wants to play for the University of Illinois and stay home in Champaign. So he will visit us very early and hopefully commit sometime mid-season. Now moving over to defensive end. At defensive end, Monte Beck is one of Illinois' top 2 targets at this position. Also a home state kid out of Illinois. Very balanced defensive end. Illinois is one of his 2 offers. And right now, Illinois is favorited to land him, and they hopefully expect to land him at some point in the middle of the season. So in this class, we already have seen a couple in-state kids that really favor going to Illinois, and Illinois wants to keep those kids in-state. Donnie Powers and Sam Tate are sort of backup options at this position if they cannot land Monte Beck or Larry Cole, but they both have heavy interest in Illinois, and I'm sure if Illinois were to offer them, they would commit. And lastly, Larry Cole, also out of Missouri. He is Illinois' top target at this position. Illinois is going after him very hard. He's got good power moves and a good block shedding grade between Illinois and Missouri. They are in a battle to land him. He's visiting both schools consecutive weeks, and those seem to be his final 2 cuts. And I really hope Larry Cole did not watch the season opener against Missouri, because if he had watched that game, that may have swayed him. But we shall see how that plays out. But right now, Missouri is a decent favorite to land him over Illinois. Moving over to defensive tackle, of course, Illinois will look to add someone at this position, with Anthony Shipton being a senior, and he will be departing after this year. Chris Williams is by far Illinois' top target at defensive end. He's got a very good tackle grade, but Wisconsin is the favorite to land him right now. So Illinois will have to battle Wisconsin. However, they made the cuts. Illinois and Wisconsin are in his top 2, but Wisconsin is a heavier favorite to get him. So we shall see how this ends up playing out. Hopefully Illinois can make a push there towards the end of this recruiting cycle to land him. And then Demetrius McMahon, also considered a backup option like a lot of these guys at each position. He's considered more of a balanced defensive end, doesn't quite have as good of grades as Chris Williams, but Illinois could certainly get him if they offered him. They have not offered him yet. And now we move over to cornerback, where Illinois just looks to keep building depth at this position. They have recruited this position very well over last year and this year, as you can see. Andrew Medlock and Anthony James are 2 guys that they're considering. Medlock has very good speed and coverage grades. He needs to work on tackling a little bit. That is considered one of his weaknesses, but very good coverage grades. And so far right now, it looks like he is coming to Illinois. Illinois is his only offer. It's the only school that he's visiting. And Illinois didn't really have to recruit him too hard to be able to convince him to come to Champaign. And it looks like Illinois will land him at some point during the middle of the season. He might wait to make his visit first. But Andrew Medlock out of South Carolina, another South Carolina kid that they project to be able to get here. And then Anthony James out of Indiana. Anthony James has all-around very good coverage grades. His play recognition grade is very high. And as far as where he will commit, it's the same story as Andrew Medlock. It looks like Anthony James is coming to Illinois. Illinois is his only offer, and it'll be the school that he will commit to. He's visiting us in week 9. So Illinois looks to land both of these guys, very similar grades, at some point during the middle of the season. So that'll be very good for Illinois to get both of these guys. And then at kicker, Illinois needs to replace Caleb Griffin, who is a senior, so they will need a kicker on the roster for next year. They will play right away, and they have 2 guys that they're considering. The first one is Reggie Mathis, who has very good kick power. His accuracy is okay, and as of right now, Illinois is his only offer, and they are the favorite to land him. So Illinois went really hard after Reggie Mathis from the very beginning of this recruiting cycle. And then Matt Evans is also the other kicker out of Idaho, who Illinois is considering. He's got very good kick power, but his kick accuracy could use some work. But as far as where he will commit, it's the same story as Reggie Mathis. Illinois went hard after him at the very beginning of the recruiting cycle, and no other schools have offered him yet. He's considering some other decent Power 5 schools there, but Illinois went after him early, and they offered him early, and that seems to be paying off. But as you know, Illinois can only take one kicker, and I don't think they expected to be the favorites to land both of these guys. And maybe offering both of them scholarships was a mistake, because if they both end up committing at this point, then Illinois is going to have to cut one of them. From my intel, it seems like Reggie Mathis is probably the favorite between the two that Illinois would choose, but I think they're going to have to back off of one of the two. Most likely they will back off of Matt Evans, and hopefully he commits somewhere else, because Illinois cannot take in two kickers. So we'll see how that ends up playing out. But it's a good problem to have. Illinois needs a good kicker to replace Caleb Griffin next year. And before we wrap up recruiting, just kind of wanted to show you the pipeline states and the prospect target map here, just to kind of give you the big picture. Illinois is obviously trying to keep kids in state. They have 7 kids from the state of Illinois that they are targeting right now, and they hope to land at least 4 or 5 of them. But as you can see, they also are taking more of a national approach to recruiting. They aren't just recruiting in Missouri, Texas, and Florida. They're recruiting all over the eastern half of the United States, even some kids on the West Coast as well. This year, a few kids in the Carolinas and Ohio and Pennsylvania. So Illinois is definitely taking a national approach to recruiting, looking to build their brand. That'll wrap up recruiting. I hope you guys enjoyed that in-depth breakdown of some of the recruiting for this year. I'm very excited about it, and hopefully Illinois can land a handful of those big-time recruits. They already are looking very good to get some good guys there and build this team. But we will look ahead to Penn State now. Penn State will be coming into Champaign next week. It'll be a night game. I cannot wait for this game. But Penn State will come in as a 9-point favorite on the road. And Penn State has put up some pretty decent numbers. They have the 18th ranked rush offense so far, number 31 in total offense, number 9 in points per game. Their rush defense is also outstanding, similarly to Illinois. And there's a huge disparity between the rush defense and the pass defense. So the defenses for both of these teams seem to be very similar as far as their rankings and their strengths and weaknesses. So that'll be an interesting matchup. Illinois will need the passing game to be on its game to match up with Penn State in this one. And Will Levis, he is a fifth-year senior quarterback who will be starting for Penn State. They have 2 stud senior running backs in Noah Kane and Devin Ford, and then Enzo Jennings is their star safety, who already has 3 interceptions on the year. Taking a look at Penn State's schedule, they opened the season against Texas Tech, who they blew out. They played Northwestern week 2, also blew them out at home. They played App State and beat them. And then they lost on the road to Iowa by 1 score. Penn State will be coming into Champaign off of a loss, so they will look to rebound. And just taking a quick look here at their roster, they got some good guys, a lot of seniors. Zach Kuntz is their leading receiver at tight end. He's also a 5th-year senior, so very good team. They've got a lot of depth, and they are a high-graded team, so Illinois will certainly have its hands full, especially whenever you play one of these schools that recruits very well. You're going to have a lot of good, talented athletes on the field. And Penn State's a big-time program, and I'm very excited that this is now an annual matchup that'll be played. We'll be going to Happy Valley next year. So I'm very much looking forward to this game. I've said it so many times. I hope you guys are excited for this game. And I really believe that, and now that Illinois is 4-1, they're 2-0 in conference play, I really believe this game is sort of like a pivot point on the season, because if Illinois is able to pull off this victory against Penn State, who's a very talented team, if they can beat Penn State, I think Illinois is a legitimate contender to win the Big Ten West if they can win this game. Because if you win this game, you'll be 5-1, 3-0 in conference play, and as of right now, it looks like Wisconsin will be the team to beat in this division, and Illinois certainly, I think, can hang with Wisconsin. But if they lose this game, Illinois certainly will fall behind in the standings, and it'll be an uphill battle to potentially get to the Big Ten championship game. So for all those reasons, I feel like this game is very important, and we'll see what Illinois can do. This will be the most talented team they face up to this point. And I cannot wait. War Memorial Stadium will be packed. It'll be a night game, and I just cannot wait. A big-time game in this conference, big-time team coming in. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we will see you, of course, for next week against the Nittany Lions. See you guys then.